Well, welcome this week, my heroes. Welcome. I am fired up about this week's topic because this is something that's happened to me multiple times throughout my life. And I know that it's happened to a lot of you out there as well. And a lot of you, especially if you're entrepreneurial minded, which a lot of you are, most of you are, but it also applies to you if you've been in the corporate space for most of your life as well. And the parameters that people like to sometimes put on you. In fact, I was just listening, part of the spark of this was me listening to some good 90s throwback music that I was super into, high school Aaron, and I really at one point was deep into listening to DiFranco. I love her so much, such a touchstone for a lot of us 90 kids that, were fighting the power in our own way at that time. And she has a song. It's called 32 Flavors. And it's all about getting to be lots of different things. And it's okay if people think that you're supposed to pick one flavor and stick to it because that's what we're supposed to do to be safe. But no, you can absolutely reject that out of hand and be all 32 flavors and then some, as the lyric goes. And I want to explore this topic a little bit because this comes up in stories in people's heads. There's stories about themselves when they're looking at what's possible for them. So what's possible for you as far as your business, your personal life, the stories you want to write about yourself, the story that you're in right now, and what's possible for you in other versions of yourself as you evolve to become different versions of yourself throughout your life. And there are going to be some people that don't like that when you choose to invent a new story about yourself or move towards a new story, a new version of yourself. I've touched on this in other specific topics I've talked about in the past, but I wanted to concentrate just on this aspect that can happen to people, and it impacts your story and sometimes can scare people out of changing their story, even though it's their deepest heart's desire to change a career, to change a personal story about themselves, a personally held belief. Something that they want to do, but feel like they can't, that they are boxed in and they can't make a different decision. In fact, I remember a specific instance when I was, I think I was actually in my early 30s by this point, but I was going in for a job. It was a corporate, large mobile company. Okay. And I was going in and I was already hired as part of a team to come in and do this kind of very important project that had to be hush-hush, lots of NDAs, all this kinds of stuff. So I was brought in because of my expertise in casting and in working with people from all kinds of different areas and being able to have that skill set and do that. And if you look at my resume, it is a lot of different things. For those of you that have listened, I've had lots of incarnations of my professional story over the years. I was a professional actor, stage actor, and then a television actor. And then I was a casting director, background, and then primary casting. And there were people that didn't want me to change my definition of moving from background casting to primary casting. There was a certain way you had to do that. And I was doing it the wrong way, the way that not other people had done, even within that industry. And then when I decided to open my own production company, there were people that said that you're not supposed to do that, or there's a certain way to go about doing that. And I just did it my way anyway. And so I have kind of a history of doing these things. So my resume looks fairly eclectic. Plus I have project management on there and working with huge tech companies, but also smaller businesses and in the arts. It looks like a lot of different things because there have been lots of different stories that I've decided to pursue because I'm a curious person by nature. But I was in this interview. Like I said, I'd actually already been placed, but this person came into the room and thought that I was still being interviewed for the role and sat down kind of in a very self-aggrandizing way and kind of, sat back in their seat and just started flipping through my resume and was just like, well, looks like you still haven't figured out what you want to be when you grow up. And they thought that that was, a snide remark, a cutting remark, something that would make me mad maybe. I don't know really what their purpose was of doing that. Probably just to be in control of the situation. Some people, unfortunately get off on that. And I think that's the situation I was in. And I came right back and said, oh, absolutely. I have no idea what I want to be when I grow up. And I kind of hope I never do. Which took this person a bit by surprise because I was in a corporate environment. I was supposed to, be in the hot seat and come up with the right answer for that, and maybe say like, oh no, absolutely, I have other experience, but really, I'm perfect for this role because, and I didn't do that, which took the power back in the situation, which can be a good thing to learn how to do. But really, I want to offer that to you as a story of it happens to all of us. People in interview situations and job situations where you might be going for another role that you're interviewing for. If you want to look at doing a different role that's completely different, if you're in marketing, but you want to transition to sales, if you're in sales and you want to do customer education and support, if you are doing any kind of, you're in real estate and you decide you want to do something completely different, like open a bar in Bora Bora. Nobody gets to tell you what you can and can't do unless you give them permission to do so for you. You are actively giving them permission to tell you who you are if you take that information in and decide that they're right. But the funny thing is, so often these stories are stories that we tell ourselves. You may have had an instance like me earlier on in your life where you were in a similar situation where someone told you or made a snide remark about who you were and what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do within the norms of society, in huge quotation marks, in your personal or professional life. That you had already chosen a certain version of yourself and you have to stay there now. It's solid and impermeable and you can't move. You can't push on the edges. You can't go in a different direction because you're not allowed. And you may have taken that story and kept it. And now you think that that's your story and that you have to keep believing it. And I'm here to release you from that. You don't have to believe that story, but I do want to point out that most often you are choosing to continue to believe that story of what's possible and not possible for you in your personal or your professional life. So I've had multiple experiences of people trying to tell me what I'm capable and capable of, and I just choose not to believe them and love that I'm intensely curious about lots of different things. I decide that I want to learn about something in marketing, or that I want to get better at my sales technique, or I want to get better at public speaking, or I want to get better at learning how to play the guitar. Whatever it is, you can give yourself permission to be curious and treat that as a superpower. It's not something less than that you are like have to kind of keep behind a curtain that, oh, I'm kind of exploring this area, but I don't want anybody to know about it because what would they think? This mythical they that we all have. I know I have this too. I have in the past. Where what would my wife think? What would my colleagues think? What would my current boss think? Like all these mythical people. You might even have a picture of a teacher that you used to have. Your fifth grade science teacher that you feel like you're always trying to impress. It's amazing when you start to pull these images and these thoughts and these stories out of your consciousness of what's still rattling around in there that may or may not still be useful to you as you go towards what you're passionate about and what you want to try and what you want to do. So realize this happens and it's not about you, is the funny thing. When someone does this to you and kind of says through a side comment or a snarky remark or a raised eyebrow or whatever, if you share with them that you are curious about something else or want to move into a different area, it's not about you and your story, actually. It's about them and the story that they're choosing to believe, or that they have chosen to believe currently, of what's possible and not possible for them. Because if you can just go and do something else, and they have chosen not to do that, then that might bring up some feelings for them of them feeling less than. And I've talked about this in the hero's journey. Those episodes where I talk about that, there are going to be people during your hero's journey, during your adventure of reinvention at any given point in your life, where there's going to be people that want to tell you can't do that because of what it means for them. It may bring up painful things, or it may make them start to question of, well, why haven't they stopped playing it safe and started to stretch themselves and be curious in other areas of their life? It's almost like it gives them permission to stay where they're at and feel good about that choice, by convincing you that you shouldn't do it. So I really want you to think about the fact that if you get that raised eyebrow, if you get that snide comment, if you get the vibe from someone that has been in your life, that as you start getting curious and pushing the boundaries of what you want your story to be, that they seem to not be rooting for you, or if you have a small failure on your journey towards becoming that thing that they're like, see, I told you, that's not about you. That's about them. And you may choose to keep them in your confidence as you move towards those things or not. Sometimes you need to reevaluate the people that you share these sorts of things with. I've had to do that as well. Sometimes people don't want to come with you on your new adventure, and that's okay. It's okay. Again, it's about them. It's not about you. And you shouldn't not do it and press on your edges and pull back because you run into somebody like that. Like I said, when I'm coaching clients or people are working with me, this often will come up. I'll have them start looking and we'll start mapping out what their story is, who they are right now, the past experiences they had, and what they want to move towards right now as far as goals and things like that. And those things start to take shape. And they inevitably start bringing up stories that I can point out that they might not even be conscious of what they did and didn't write down, or maybe crossed out and didn't want to show me. In fact, a lot of times I'll ask them, like, what did you cross out? Or what were you afraid to write down that you'd like to move towards because of what I would think or what someone else would think? And a lot of times they almost always have some things they didn't write down because it was too risky, or, that's silly, or they didn't want to be judged. And those are usually the most wonderful things that they could have written down. And those are the ones we end up moving towards. Because we have these stories that we've adopted from other people about what's possible, not possible for us, what makes us a responsible adult, what's safe, what good people do, instead of what they want to do, what they're intensely curious about, what they would love to move towards if only those people and those stories in their head would make it possible for them. And the secret is, it is possible. And if we can tease out those stories for you, and you can start to examine and get curious about what are some stories you might be believing about what's possible and not possible for you personally and professionally, that you don't have to believe anymore, that you have the power to just stop believing them. Might take some time to work on it because those thoughts will still fire. Those emotions might still fire, but you can work through them, get curious about them, and over time they get less and less and less loud until they're really not an issue anymore. And I want you to know that I went through the same thing. Especially when I was younger, I had so many people telling me what was and was possible for me. I wasted so much time and energy with my younger self, filtering, what was possible for me, what would they approve of, especially adults. We all go through that phase where, we want to usually impress some sort of adult or parent figure or something like that. And it's such a waste of time because there is no they once you get into owning your own life. The only they is you. What do you want to do? What do you want to be curious about? What business do you want to start? It doesn't matter if you failed 3 times on the way to get there. Failing towards success is a thing. I've never had a business that's just worked out of the box before. I've always had to learn, get curious, fail, get a little bit better at it, learn from the failure, keep moving forward. Allow yourself to have those little micro failures on your way to getting to where you want to be. You don't have to have everything figured out. Here's another story that comes up with a lot of entrepreneurs, that they have to have everything figured out in advance to have a successful business, or that other people do that. Other business owners that are successful thought everything out in advance, were super smart, and that's why they're successful. It's such bullshit. Some of the best, biggest, most profitable companies you'll come across got there by accident. They just decided to start and figured out one thing after another thing, after another thing, after another thing, and failed in a certain area, and then decided to do it a slightly different way or pivot and just keep going. A lot of times they didn't even know what the next step was going to be next week, but they just kept going. So that's a story to get rid of as well, all my entrepreneurs out there. Stories like, oh, marketing is complicated. I'm not an expert, so I can't do that. Or sales is hard, or it has to be hard, or it has to be nerve-wracking. It doesn't have to be, if you know what your story is and how to communicate it properly, which we work on with our students as well. Or here's another one that sounds like it's true, but it's not. Working for someone else is the right way to be an adult because it's safe. Go to work for someone else. It's safe. It's not safe. We're all at-will employees. It might feel a bit safer because you apply for a job, you get the job, you get to go to that job, you get a paycheck, it comes through a system, everything like that. But at a moment's notice, as many people are finding out right now, you can be laid off. You are an at-will employee. You might get a couple dollars if you're lucky on the way out the door, but you're in the pile with everybody else. Not to be a jerk, but it's just reality. So it is really no safer than betting on yourself. Betting on your story, on your curiosity, on where you want to go is, in my opinion, always the best bet and pays off all the time. It has paid off so many more times when I bet on myself rather than betting on the safe choice. So embrace curiosity. Embrace choosing not to grow up. Let's all be a bunch of kids that don't grow up. Let's all be 32 flavors and then some. Choose a curious life. Be constantly curious. It's okay for you to say, I don't know, tell me more in your next meeting. I do that all the time. I don't feel stupid if I don't know what that acronym means and I ask somebody to tell me what it means. That's something that you can do as well. So here are a few steps that I came up with. I was like, if I was going to teach someone who really wanted to know, okay, how can I start being more curious? If I want to stop believing some of these stories that I have, I want to choose to be more curious and not be embarrassed about it, about all kinds of different ways that I can go with my story. What are some ways that I can do it? And here's what I would say to that person in 3 steps. We all love those 3 easy steps, right? So here's 3 easy steps for you. Step number 1 is shake the Etch-a-Sketch. Remember when you were a kid, anyone who played with an Etch-a-Sketch? The red rectangle frame-like device that you turn the 2 knobs and you can draw pictures and stuff like that. And then you just shake it and it gets blank again and then you can start over. That's the first step. Shake your own internal Etch-a-Sketch. Your current and past job titles have nothing to do with what's possible for you. Your current and past job titles or what you do in exchange for money has 0 bearing on what is possible for you to be or to become. And I really need you to hear me when I say that. Your current and past job titles or what you do in exchange for money right now or have done in the past has 0 bearing on what is possible for you to be or become. Age makes no difference here, by the way. Anyone who then went to the next step of, well, yeah, that's possible if I was still in my early 20s, but I'm 55 now. Absolute bullshit. 60, 70, doesn't matter. You can reinvent yourself whenever you want. It's never too late to shake your Etch-a-Sketch. So that's the first step, is just believe that it's possible for you and shake your Etch-a-Sketch as far as any stories, erase them of what's possible and not possible for you. Number 2, step 2, remember how to play pretend. It was so easy when we were kids. You would get together with a group of your friends and decide that you were all running a doctor's office or we're all superheroes or we're all being dentists or a grocer or running a grocery store. You would all just decide who you wanted to be, and you would just believe and start going. You wouldn't over-examine it. You wouldn't research it forever and delay it. You would just start. And if you decided to be someone else during it, you just would. So try to remember what that was like. So many times the repercussions that we think there are, or what they will think, don't exist. It's just in our own brain. It's just your lizard brain trying to keep you safe, trying to keep you from getting hurt. But most of the time, that's absolutely just the back of your brain trying to keep you safe, but you don't need it. So being one thing does not mean you can't stop at a moment's notice and decide to be another one. Everything you've ever done has a day one, has a day where you have to start and you don't know a lot about it, about that new job, about that thing you want to pursue. It's your first day putting the guitar in your lap and figuring out where to put the finger placements. It's your first day going to the gym and picking up your first weight or sitting down on your first machine to do your first rep. Everyone starts. You have started your stories so many times in other places. You can do it here as well. So play pretend is number 2. After you shake that Etch-a-Sketch, Play pretend. What do you want to get curious about? What do you want to do? And just believe that you're able to do it. Like when you were a kid and you would just believe and you would just play. And step 3, once you start doing that, make one step towards your news story or your goal. One step. Book that guitar class. Get online and look for a guitar. What is that thing that you want to pursue or that story that you would like to learn more about? And do the first little thing that gets you started so you're on the path. And no caring about what they will think. If you want a little more information on this and about how to do some of these habits and how to start going towards your goal and how it takes way less time than you think, check out the episode we did on that. It was episode 28, and it's how to go back to school on your habits. So that's a good one to listen to after this one if you want to start implementing your curiosity and moving towards that new version of yourself, that new story of yourself, once you get curious. So those are my 3 steps for you if you want to be more curious and move towards being curious all the time. And being okay if someone says you don't know what you want to be when you grow up and going, hell yeah, I don't. I hope I never figure it out. I hope I'm intensely curious for the rest of my damn life. That when I find out about something new that sounds amazing and I want to learn about and learn how to be good at it and learn how to teach other people how to do it, that I just go towards it. Like when I was a kid playing pretend. Because you can shake your Etch-a-Sketch at any time. You can decide to play pretend, and then you can take steps towards that new version of yourself whenever you want. And don't let anyone ever tell you any different. All right, my friends. I'll leave you with the lyrics of 32 Flavors and Then Some from the amazing DiFranco as we leave today. Squint your eyes and look closer. I'm not between you and your ambition. I'm a poster girl with no poster. I'm 32 flavors and then some. Have a great week, my friends. I'll talk to you soon.